The NFL's back, and there's no better way to stay up to date on the latest from around the league than listening to the Around the NFL podcast. Join me, Dan Hansis, and my buds, Mark Sessler and Greg Rosenthal, for the latest football news with a dash of mirth.
We are three guys embarking on our 11th season together. 11 seasons, can't be wrong. Come along for the ride.
Fresh content almost every day, all season long.
Listen to Around the NFL on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander.
This is where projects come to life. Our showrooms are designed to inspire with the latest products from top brands, curated in an inviting, hands-on environment, and a team of industry experts to support your project. We'll be there to make sure everything goes as planned, from product selection to delivery coordination. At Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery, your project is our priority.
Find great brands like Kohler at your local showroom or visit us online at ferguson.com/build.
It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go!
On Giants.com.
I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast, our Friday edition brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Today, we're going to be joined by Giants quarterback Tyrod Taylor. Lance Meadow previews the Eagles with Dave Spadaro from Eagles.com. And then Bob Papa talks to the head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll. It's all brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. Let's lead it off with my interview with Giants quarterback Tyrod Taylor. All right, we're back here, and now we're joined by the Giants starting quarterback this week, the one and only Tyrod Taylor. Ty, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Long season, final game of that long season. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs for you this year. When you kind of take a look at the season as a whole for you as an individual, how do you think about it?
It's a season of perseverance. Obviously, contributing in many different ways. I mean, coming into the season as number 2, DJ getting hurt, me stepping in, then myself getting hurt, having a affect and lead from a different lens, still traveling with the team, trying to help Tommy out as much as possible. And still staying ready for when the opportunity presented when I came back if my number was called. Yeah, it's a long season for sure, but definitely thankful for it all. I think when you deal with adversity as a player, it makes you stronger, and it gives you just a different perspective. In the grand scheme of things, obviously it wasn't the season that we wanted from a team perspective, but I think there's still a lot of positive to take away from this. We battled injury, and everyone who had an opportunity to come in and step up and play, I think did a great job of responding. Yeah, obviously we didn't get the wins or all the wins that we wanted, but that's sometimes how a season goes, and I think good teams are able to learn from those, and I think we have the right people within this locker room to be able to learn and make ourselves better next year. I mean, with all that being said, we still have an opportunity in front of us this Sunday to finish off on a strong note versus a divisional team who's going to the playoffs. So it's still goals within the locker room and still things to achieve in front of us. But yeah, just looking back on the season, I'm definitely proud of the way guys competed. And never hung their head. We were in a lot of games. Some things just didn't turn our way, and that's something that we have to be better at next year.
What did you learn maybe either about yourself and also about the other 2 quarterbacks in your room, Tommy and Daniel, as you guys dealt with different types of adversity throughout the year?
And Shay spoke to this yesterday. Regardless of the situation, whether it was DJ out there playing, myself or Tommy, all of us stayed together and helped one another. And I don't think you get that in every quarterback room. It's a genuine friendship throughout all the guys in that room. And we all try to help each other out one way or another. I mean, obviously the team feeds off how we go off and perform. And that's not to say that that's the end all. But from the quarterback perspective, having the right leadership and doing the right things gives your team the best chance. And I think that we were able to do so. Could we have played better in certain areas? Obviously, yes. I think everybody in the locker room could have done better at some point. But ultimately, we competed. We competed at a high level, and we didn't shy away from the opportunity that was presented in front of us.
You mentioned Shea. He's been talked about last year as a potential offensive coordinator in this league. What makes him to you as someone that's been around a lot of different quarterback coaches. What makes him a good quarterbacks coach, and why do you think he has a bright future in the league?
Very smart. I got a lot of respect for Shea. He's been around a number of different teams at different levels that have had success, collegiate level as well as the professional level. And he has a lot of insight from a quarterback perspective. He helps us a lot with our prep. And he knows how to deal with each individual within the room. And I think it takes a special person to be able to do that. Like I said, I have nothing but respect for Shea and how he goes about his business day in and day out.
Now, you've been in this offense as long as anybody, going back even to your time previous to here. What is it about this offensive system, and also how Mike Kafka's influenced it and changed it a little bit since he got here, that you think makes it an offense that is effective in the National Football League? As a quarterback, what do you like about it?
Yeah, I think it takes advantage of matchups, and with the weapons that we have on this team, from the wide receiver position to the tight end position, as well as the running backs. We do a great job of creating matchups and letting those guys be able to win their one-on-one matchups, and that's what the game is boiled down to. It's a lot of exotic defenses that you see week in and week out, but the game boils down to you winning your matchups, and I think Coach Cav, as well as the offensive staff, do a great job of allowing the playmakers to go out and win those matchups. And ultimately, it's up to myself, DJ, Tommy, whoever's back there, quarterback, to be able to get those guys the football.
You talked about in your first answer some of the adversity this offense has faced this year. Quarterback injuries. I don't think you had the same starting offensive line group for the first 8 or 9 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
How much do you think was left on the bone meat-wise this year from this offense? Like, how much more can it be if you didn't have to face all that adversity from a personnel perspective throughout the year?
Yeah, I think we've shown how special we could be at times. And obviously, injuries is part of the game. It's not an excuse.
But it's a reason.
But it's a reality. Yeah, it's a reality. When you look back at our season, we've dealt with some key injuries at different spots throughout our offense. But when you go back and look at the explosive we've been able to create in the plays we've been able to create in the passing game as well as the run game, I think you realize that you have the pieces here. It's just about going out and executing and doing that at a high level week in and week out.
You talk about the explosives. Tyrod, I think throughout your whole career, and you've shown it here since when you've had a chance to play, throw one of the best deep balls in the league.
Thank you.
What's the key to throwing a good, catchable deep ball?
Getting it up early, especially with the speed with these guys these days. But it's also just about trusting receivers, being on the same page. You hear people say 50-50 balls, and it's like from a quarterback perspective, we like 70-30. It's like I tell the receivers, hey, look, when an opportunity is presented and we push the ball down the field, it's either you or it's no one. Or try to create a PI. Like I'm throwing these up with confidence that the DB is not going to beat you or get the better hand of it. I like our matchups with our receivers one-on-one down the field, whether it's with the safety or DB. I think they've shown that they're capable of making those plays, and just about trusting the guys. And I think that's how you build trust, is pushing the ball down the field.
I'm going to ask you about a couple of the receivers in a second. You threw a number of great deep balls last week when you went back and looked at the tape against the Rams. And not just the throws, some drops, penalties as an offense. When you guys looked at that tape, did your foreheads just hit the table and your hands hit your foreheads like, oh, we had so many opportunities to score more points than we did? For sure. And I think, not even just after looking at the tape, it was a gut feeling of that in the locker room after the game. Obviously, it's not a good feeling anytime you lose. But I think good teams try to look at and narrow the eye as to what we could have done better. Sure. And it was definitely some plays, a handful of plays left out there on the field. And for us to be the team that we want to be, we have to take the right step to – it's going to be some plays that you don't make. That's just part of the game. It's not – we strive for perfection, but that's not the reality of this sport. We have to week in and week out try to limit those, take advantage of as many explosives. Explosives helps you create momentum, which ultimately creates points as well too. All right, let's talk about some of the receivers. Jalen Hyatt, we know what he can do, speed, get over the top. You've hit him on a couple of those deep passes this year. What's the next step for him to take that next step forward to be a complete wide receiver and expand his game as he continues to improve as a young player? I like the trajectory that he's on. I think it just boils down to just more reps.
Obviously, your first year in the league, sometimes going against a DB that has never seen you or just have seen you on film, you can get the upper hand. But as he attacks his second year and years to come, he has to understand that teams are going to have a plan for him. DBs are going to have a certain plan for him. So it's just growing within his game. And I think he has all the capability of doing that. He's a young, special talent, and looking forward to seeing him make a lot of plays for a long time in this league. Very proud of the receiver that he's become, and I think it's the stuff that we've seen, the splashes and the plays that we've seen is just a small portion of what he's going to be when it's all said and done.
How does a multi-use weapon like Wan'Dale Robinson help an offense and a quarterback?
Wan'Dale is, to be one of the smallest guys on the field, he's one of the most explosive guys on the field.
Sure.
He creates energy with the ball in his hand. His run after catch is top notch. I mean, you don't really see a lot of guys at his size still try to create yards after catch. Most of those guys try to protect their bodies, but he's fearless. He competes at a high level, and he wants the ball. In those moments, he wants to show what he can do. He's done it every time he's given the opportunity.
John Michael Schmitz, rookie center. You have worked with a lot of centers before. I'm not going to have you judge his blocking, but in terms of the mental stuff, protections, working with the center, is he pretty advanced for a rookie?
He's very advanced, and that's one of the things that stood out to me early on. Just his command of that room, of that group. He's very smart. He's confident. He doesn't hesitate when he's answering a question, whether we're in the meeting room with the coaches or if it's him running the protection meetings on Thursday evenings. He has a strong command and a great sense of the offense, and he's going to be a great player as well in this league for a long time.
I want to ask about Saquon now. You know, the running back value argument, we've heard it a billion times, right? But from a quarterback's perspective, when you have a guy like Saquon on the field, and I think we've seen this with how teams are focusing him on early in games, and you guys have trouble running early because teams are really locked in on him. How does having a playmaker like that behind you as a threat at running back help you in an offense overall?
It helps me tremendously. I've always had respect for Saquon. We've known each other, but not necessarily played with each other until last year. And he's as advertised, if not better. He's a big play waiting to happen, whether it's in the running game or the passing game. He takes one-on-one matchups in the passing game personal. He doesn't feel that anyone out there can cover him. And if you've seen some of the things that I've seen him do, whether it be in practice or in games, he has a right to feel that way. Teams ultimately have the most respect for him, and they understand if we get him going, then that's a big part of our offense. If you could stop him, then obviously they try to create other ways for us to have success. But he does it all in the passing game and the run game. Have nothing but respect, and happy just to be able to share the field with him and his playmaking abilities.
Now, in in the summer, you have to go against Wink Martindale's defense in practice, right? Not many teams run that type of system anymore. Everyone's playing a lot of zone, back off.
Yep.
Wink does a lot of crazy stuff. What's the impact of having to play against that type of defense in the middle of an NFL season when you don't see it very often, it's brand new, and the impact it can have on a quarterback?
It makes you hesitate at times, and obviously that's all he's looking for. He wants you to hold the ball just that extra second so the pressure could get home, or just confuse you so you're thrown into something that you think that you might have seen or that you might have recognized, and it's not that. Coach Wink does a great job of creating problems for quarterbacks, just from a pressure standpoint, and just showing them different looks. Like you said, practicing against it in the spring and in training camp as well. We see so many different looks, and I think ultimately it makes us better up front because it tests our protections, and it forces us to have conversations that you may not have if you never practice against that. So we're fortunate to be able to go against it week in and week out, practice, training camp, OTAs, before a team to try to prepare for that in 7 days can be tough if you're not used to that.
All right, Eagles this week. 2 questions on the Eagles. How much can you guys take out of the game 2 weeks ago? Obviously, their scheme's not going to change in 2 weeks. The personnel's not going to change in 2 weeks, but they're also not going to show you the same exact stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what can you take out of that last game and learn to apply to this final game of the year?
Just taking what they give you. I think when you go back and look at the success that we had against them 2 weeks ago, it was about getting the ball out on time, taking what they give you and methodically moving the ball down the field. Obviously, we know and everyone knows they have a great rush. Not letting those guys get home. They may not change scheme or anything, but they're confident. They're Super Bowl runner-up last year. Maybe not as good of a record that they want to have this year, but they're still capable of going to the Super Bowl this year. You don't know. They're a playoff team, so you never know. But, yeah, it's just about us going out there and executing at a high level and marching the ball down the field and finishing in red zone and executing better on third down.
And at the same time, and final question, you talk about being methodical about it, right? You can get shot plays against them if you protect long enough, right? So what's the art to finding the right spot and the right opportunity to take those types of chances? Because the defense that generally, to your point, does play softer coverage.
Yeah, I think it's about obviously executing on early downs, not putting yourself in negative plays, making it easier for those guys to pin their ears back and rush. You want to be in third and manageable. You want to be able to execute and be efficient in the passing game. And when those shots organically happen, as Coach Caps calls them, be aggressive but not reckless.
Tyrod, good stuff, man. Best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you. God bless.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
The Huddle is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giant fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Great stuff from Tyrod there. I really liked his conversation about his teammates and some of the other stuff going on around him that I think was pretty informative. All right, let's get to our hardcore Eagles preview. With that, Lance Meadow talks to Dave Spadaro, who covers the Eagles in-house down in Philadelphia.
The Giants close out the 2023 regular season at MetLife Stadium on Sunday against their NFC East rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. Second time in 3 weeks, these teams are meeting after Philly won on Christmas 33-25. To help set the stage for the second go-around, we're now joined by Eagles insider for PhiladelphiaEagles.com, none other than Dave Spadaro. Dave, you got Lance Meadow here on Giants.com. Hope all is well. Appreciate the time. How's everything on your end?
Lance, happy New Year. Look, it's been a crazy run for the Eagles here at the end of the season. But otherwise, things are good. But really intriguing, I think, not only this game, but this Philadelphia Eagles football team is just, the season has just been on the edge the entire year, and now they've really struggled at the most important time in the season.
Well, Dave, I'm glad you went there because that's where I want to start. You look at the Eagles, they start off 10-1. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and the last 3 games, it's been a challenge for them to hold on to a halftime lead. The Giants win is the lone exception, but that came down to perhaps a game-tying touchdown and a 2-point conversion for the Giants in bringing that contest to overtime. So if you had to pin your finger on why it's been such a struggle to finish games as of late, what would it be?
Yeah, it's been crazy. Well, first of all, to get to 10-1, they had to win a lot of very close games. So it's a team that, in a large sense, has been living on the edge all year. So the margin for error has been really slim. And Lance, there's been some really consistent themes throughout. The turnover ratio, which has been so good for Nick Sirianni in his first 2 seasons. This year, Eagles are -7 in the turnover department. That is not a winning formula. Number 2, the run defense, really since week 10, has been just leaky. 150 yards a game allowed. They're not getting off the field defensively, which has necessitated the change from Sean Desai calling the game day signals to Matt Patricia, with not a notable amount of improvement, certainly not on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Offensively, they just haven't been able to get those big chunk plays consistently. They haven't been consistent in the red zone. It's just a team that has had, as you said, 9 leads late in games, and they've lost 3 of those games. They haven't been able to put teams away. And so what is the problem? I boil it down to when I see this football team that used to win consistently at the line of scrimmage, particularly on the defensive side where they had 70 quarterback sacks last year, they're just not doing it in 2023. You add all that up and you're losing football games, and that's where the Eagles are. They got to find a way to turn this thing around.
Now, I think it's interesting in terms of the approach, though, Dave, for the team this week. And I know Nick Sirianni, when he spoke earlier this week, had dangled out, they're still trying to determine whether or not they're going to have all hands on deck and play everybody because, as you know, the Cowboys game goes up simultaneous to them and Dallas controls its own destiny. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I'm sure they want to put a game together where they finish strong entering the postseason, especially if they're going to have to play in the wild card round. How do you see Sirianni balancing both of those aspects?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a conundrum in a lot of ways. Now, of course, it's really hard to rest everyone. There's only 53 players on the active roster. You can bring players up from the practice squad, of course. But Eagles also know that this has been a weird thing that's been going on, and the Cowboys have lost, I think, 3 of their last 5 road games. So they're not a good football team away from home. Last season, they went into Washington end of the year, and the Commanders beat them. So you don't forfeit the opportunity to still win the NFC East and get a home playoff game at the very least, and potentially a number 2 seed. So I think the sense I get is that they're going to play their regulars. I mean, they will likely keep their eyes on what's happening in Washington. And if it is apparent that the Cowboys are going to run away with that game, then maybe you rest a Jason Kelce and a Lane Johnson and a Fletcher Cox, and you give those players some time down, Jalen Hurts. But you do need to put together something. You want to go into the playoffs with something that you can hang your hat on, and they just have not been able to do so. And they thought with the win over the Giants on Christmas evening that the offense had made some strides, and they had 465 yards and 28 first downs, and they struggled in the red zone, but they still scored a lot of points. That the offense would take that and then move into the Arizona game and continue the momentum. Well, the Cardinals controlled the football for 40 minutes of the game. Eagles offense struggled at the beginning, struggled at the very end. And so now you go into this game wanting to have a good showing, something to build on. It sounds crazy, but the Giants certainly remember their 9-7 season. They beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. How'd that happen? They found a spark. They found a way, something to believe in. And as crazy as it sounds, in the NFL, sometimes that's all you need, that little spark. And I think that's what the Eagles are looking for here in Week 18.
Coincidentally, you could argue the Giants were playing some of their best football late in the season, which I think is your main point. And we see that with all recent Super Bowl winners, Dave. I think that's very valid. I want to piggyback off of your point about the last Giants game, because I think from the Giants' perspective, as you well know, there's been a lot of lopsided games in this series, and the Eagles have dominated. They had an opportunity for a touchdown at the very end and a 2-point conversion. Who knows, maybe that game goes into overtime. But there were 2 turnovers by the Eagles, Dave, as you know, in the second half, the opening kickoff, and then Jalen Hurts threw a pick 6 to Adoree Jackson. I'm curious, how does Philly view that last game? Because from the Giants' perspective, the goal this season, Dave, has been, can they close the gap on the Eagles? Can they make them competitive? Do the Eagles look at that as the Giants have caught up with them a little bit, or that was, hey, if we handle the football better in the second half, the game probably doesn't even come down to that?
Yeah, I mean, more of the latter, I think, but the Eagles have not handled the football all season. Again, pointing back to that -7 in the takeaway ratio. They've got 24 giveaways this year. And, Jalen Hurts last season had 8 turnovers. He's got 19, 20 turnovers this season. So, I mean, if you can't take care of the football, give the Giants a ton of credit. The Giants, you could argue after Tommy DeVito left the game, had no business being in the football game. And the Eagles, if you are a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, you put the Giants away, just like you would have put the Cardinals away last week, leading 21-6 at the half. Eagles didn't do it. It's been a theme all season. I don't have the answer. The turnovers are certainly one really apparent reason that the Eagles are struggling so much in winning games convincingly when they've had an opportunity to do so. So how do the Eagles look at that game? They look at that game as one that has been consistent with their performance this season. Just good enough to win. Hanging on at the end. It happened so many times this season. And against Arizona, the Cardinals just reached the end zone. That's really the difference between what happened with Philadelphia and the Giants. what happened with Philadelphia and Washington twice, what happened with Philadelphia and Dallas. Cowboys were driving down Lincoln Financial Field. They got stopped last play at the 4-yard line. What happened against Miami, to a degree, Minnesota, Buffalo went into overtime. All of these games that the Eagles had a chance to put it away as they would have done in 2022, they have not done so in 2023.
That's why I think if you look at the point differential and you look at an 11-win team, you say, wow, that's unbelievable, considering, to your point. Yeah, it doesn't add up because they're not cruising past opponents like we saw to the level in 2022. Now, one of their offensive weapons got banged up in the Arizona game. That's Devontae Smith, who limped off with the ankle injury. As we're recording this on Thursday, clearly his status is up in the air. I would think if you're Nick Sirianni, you also have to take that into consideration, Dave. Do you want to overplay guys that are not fully healthy? Do you want to preserve them for the postseason? Then, of course, A.J. Brown addressed the media the other day because there's been talk about him not getting the ball enough and him being frustrated. So what would you best assess the situation right now with the receiver position entering the last game here?
Well, the Devontae Smith situation is interesting because he's such a tough guy, wants to play football so much. Yesterday didn't have the boot on, didn't have crutches, didn't practice, had limited practice. I think Devontae is one of those guys, it's really hard to keep him off the football field. He is a super driven guy and loves the game and will play. I think he has a chance to play in this football game, but you certainly want to monitor him. You don't want to damage him going into the postseason. This offense would take a significant step back without Devontae Smith. And then A.J. Brown, I give him credit for standing up and saying, I wasn't mad at the coaches. I'm not mad at it. I'm frustrated. And I think that's kind of the way it is with this football team. They expect to be in a much different situation. And I know a lot of teams out there would say, gosh, we would love to have the problems the Eagles have, 11-5. That'd be terrific. But again, this team had a 10-1 record, won some impressive games, showed some resilience, showed some mettle late in games, and then they lose 4 of their last 5 here and go from there was so much on the line, Lance, against the Arizona Cardinals, and the Eagles let them come back from a 21-6 deficit at home. So I think the Eagles wide receiver core, look, Julio Jones stepped up and had 2 touchdown catches last week. That was a really positive thing to see. Olamide Zaccheaus has been a nice 4th receiver. They haven't gotten a lot out of Quez Watkins. So I think that Devontae Smith will do everything he can to put himself in position to play on Sunday. How much the coaches then play him, we'll see about that.
We're talking with Dave Spadaro, Eagles insider for PhiladelphiaEagles.com, previewing the Week 18 matchup between the Giants and the Eagles here on Giants.com. I want to flip the script to the defensive side of the ball. Dave, earlier you had alluded to the change in play caller from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. That happened in Week 15, 1 week before the first matchup between the Giants and the Eagles. And coincidentally, they're giving up 17-plus points in each of the second halves of the last 3 contests. Is it easy to just say they're still getting a feel for Matt Patricia's play calling and he's trying to put his stamp on this defense, or it's essentially still the continuation of all the other issues that you were talking about even earlier this season?
Yeah, more of the latter, the extension of the issues. They really struggled on third downs. They've struggled in the red zone this year. They have not taken the football away. Lately, they've given up some X plays, which is the number one no-no in the NFL, as we know. They have not gotten to the quarterback. The tackling was poor against the Arizona Cardinals. Prior to that, they felt it was good against the Giants. They've had some injuries throughout the season in the secondary. Darius Slay has been out. I would not expect him to play on Sunday, but we'll see. Zach Cunningham, their best linebacker, has been out. You know, they really counted on Nakobe Dean, their 3rd-round draft pick last year. He's been injured with 2 foot injuries all season, so he's been a non-factor. Yeah, it's been really strange, Lance, to see a team that was, again, so dominant at the line of scrimmage struggle as they have. Early in the season, it was the passing game. They were number 1 against the run in the first half of the year, but they were giving up some plays in the passing game, but still they were hanging in there. Now it's just been, the Cardinals did what they wanted to do on Sunday. Shocking. I mean, this is a Cardinals team that didn't have Hollywood Brown. They didn't really have a lot of apparent weapons on paper. Their offensive line a bit banged up. DJ Humphries went out of the game. And yet they dictated to the Eagles defense. That just, we're used to seeing an Eagles defense play downhill, and they just haven't been doing that. So how does Patricia get that mentality and get that style of play going in week 18 and then take it into the playoffs? We'll see. But certainly the hope was that you start up against Seattle and Drew Lock, and then you go against Tommy DeVito. No offense to Tommy DeVito, but not an upper echelon quarterback in the NFL. The Cardinals, that you had a few games here to get things right with the defense. After Sunday's game, I think there's more questions about the defense than there were before. And now you've got one game left to really try to find some answers before you're going into win or go home scenarios.
On that topic, a related note, Dave, you got me thinking because Tommy DeVito did start the first matchup, then Tyrod Taylor came in. Do you think that gives the Eagles a better outlook in this second go-around? The fact that Matt Patricia and company are now preparing for Tyrod Taylor at the controls, as opposed to the chance that the Giants spice things up with a different quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's always that when that backup quarterback comes into a game, he's going with instinct. He didn't get a lot of reps during the week. The defense didn't prepare for him. Tyrod's a bit different than DeVito. I mean, I only saw Tommy for a half, but they both have mobility. Tyrod's got a bigger arm and hurt the Eagles with a down the field play. But again, the Eagles also hurt themselves with a freak fumble on a kickoff return, and then Dallas Goedert slipping on his out route and Adoree Jackson making a really good play. So the Eagles will be ready for Tyrod Taylor now. And look, the Giants have just this season, for you guys, like watching your offense early in the year, it was painful to watch the offense. The offensive line has struggled. This is an area that in recent seasons, the Eagles have dominated the line of scrimmage defensively. So are they able to do that on Sunday, given the troubles they've had? 70 sacks last year, 40 this year, huge drop off. I know teams are playing the quick game against them, but they did the same thing last year. If they don't stop Saquon Barkley, it could be a really long day. And I think the Giants are creative with the way they run the football. And I know that the Giants are going to be ready to play. I think Brian Dable gets that football team ready to play. It's a credit to him through the season they've had that they've played so hard down the stretch and have come so close. And I think that's something for the Giants to build on next year. So we'll see. I mean, I think the Eagles are going to be ready for Tyrod's mobility. They don't want to give up plays down the field. They've got to find a way to impact Tyrod Taylor in the pocket, something they just haven't done consistently this season.
Well, Dave, as you brought up, there is a noticeable disparity between 70 and 41. I would say, though, if you look at the NFL landscape, most teams would say, hey, if we're in the vicinity of finishing with about 50 sacks on the season, it's pretty good. That's pretty respectable. But the Eagles set such a high standard last season that all of a sudden you notice the drop-off. But I still see the level of depth, I would argue. Maybe not as much. Did lose Javon Hargrave to the San Francisco 49ers. That's a noticeable guy that helped stop the run, get after the quarterback. But is it the fact that the depth and the substance, Dave, up front is not where it was in comparison to last season? Because you still see the volume, at least on paper, I guess is what I'm getting at.
You're looking at it on paper. I mean, if you're allowing 150 yards per game on the ground, it's hard to say that anybody's playing well up front. And the names are impressive. And there are flash moments for Jalen Carter and for Jordan Davis and for Milton Williams and for Fletcher Cox, etc. They played a lot of snaps here lately because they haven't been able to get off the field. And there is a good collection of talent, but they're not able to get off the field. So what is the problem? Where does it not match up with the apparent names and the talent versus the performance? You can only go on performance in this league, and the Eagles defense has just not performed here down the stretch. And, how do you get it back? You've got to win on first and second down. You got to get off the field on third and long. The fact, Lance, that they're not taking the football away really speaks to, okay, yeah, you could talk about having close to 50 sacks at the end of the day, but you don't have the takeaways. And teams have been successful on third down at a very high percentage. And they've been successful in the red zone. The touchdown percentage is very high. So it's not about the names. It's not about what you think those players are. It's about the performance. And for whatever reason, that has not matched up.
Well, because to your point, you're not getting the level of disruptive plays to cover up some of those other shortcomings that you just mentioned on third down in the red zone.
There's no doubt. Look, this defense is built, and we knew it, that the defensive line had to dominate. In the games that they played really well defensively, Tampa Bay, the Rams, earlier this season, the defensive line has dominated. When the D-line hasn't dominated, the back seven has struggled.
And it's understandable also given the injuries that have piled up on the back end, which we were talking about earlier. So before I let you go, Dave, the one name that always comes up in an Eagles-Giants game is Boston Scott. Now, I know he played the last game. I was a little taken back that he decided to help the Giants' cause with a fumble. I know it took Zacchaeus banging into him, but is there anything that we should anticipate for this go-around? Is he yearning to continue that streak that has dominated this series? What's going on here?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we all looked for it a couple of weeks ago, right? I think he had 1 carry in the game and 2 carries in the game, maybe, and then the freaky fumble. Yeah, I mean, I would expect the Eagles to have a little Boston Scott package in there, understanding that there is some weird magic. Boston Scott at MetLife Stadium, Boston Scott against the Giants. I think it's something we all have to look forward to on Sunday. And Lance, one other freaky thing. At the beginning of the season, it's so weird that we're seeing you guys 2 of the last 3 games we didn't see all year. All season, you're thinking, oh my gosh, wow, Eagles are going to break this NFC East, this schneid of no team repeating since 2003, 2004. And boom, you look up in week 18 and the Cowboys control their own division destiny. And you go, gosh, is there something really to an NFC East streak that no team has repeated in 20 years? And by golly, maybe there's something to it.
Yeah, you just threw out my favorite statistic, Dave. I bring it up all the time to Giants fans. They're probably sick of me for saying it, but you're right. The Eagles, the last group from 2001 to 2004. It's this merry-go-round. And if any team looked as if they were in prime position to take care of business with Dallas losing to Buffalo and Miami and the door seeming to open for the Eagles, it would have been Philly. And then the Arizona Cardinals said, nah, we think we're going to continue the fun for at least another season. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's been so frustrating, Lance, that this team is a veteran team. This team should know how to slam the door shut. And so far, they just haven't been able to do it. And
It's
so
another
it's now or never.
Well, it's another perfect example, Dave. I brought up the term on paper. You look at the Cowboys schedule versus the Eagles schedule, right? The final 3 games. 2 games against the Giants and the Cardinals versus Dallas having Detroit, Miami. I know Washington maybe doesn't fit that bill, but you would have thought the Eagles have a much more favorable position than the Cowboys do.
Well, it hasn't happened that way so far, but look, if the NFC is still playing its weird games, maybe Sunday things will turn around. Who knows? But that's what we're hoping for in Philadelphia.
Perhaps. Who knows? Maybe the law of average will kick in, as you just alluded to. He is Dave Spadaro, Eagles Insider. You can see him on Eagles.com as the Eagles and the Giants wrap up the 2023 regular season on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Dave, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Enjoy the game and look forward to talking down the road. Thanks for coming on.
Lance, thanks so much for having me. Happy New Year, and let's see what happens on Sunday.
Same to you. My pleasure.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Giant fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens, named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by, who else? The Banker. As the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Huddle, Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. As always, and for the final time this year, Bob Papa, the voice of the Giants, talks to the head coach of the New York Football Giants, Brian Daboll.
The Giants wrap up their 2023 season at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. As always, we're joined by the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. And, Coach, you take a look at this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. They've got a lot to play for. Your team has been playing in these playoff-like games here for the last month or so. How would you assess the way they've responded to the challenges?
Yeah, look, we didn't get the results that we always covet, but the level of competitiveness that they've shown, their effort, their energy, their togetherness, the way they work during the week and prepare, that's been good. Obviously, would like some different results, but looking forward to finishing strong this week.
Obviously, last year the team ended the season in the postseason. This year,
that avoided the team, and you guys weren't able to qualify for the tournament at the end of the season. However, you're building something here. There's a certain kind of culture that's being developed with the way your teams play and how hard they play each and every week. How important is it from an evaluation standpoint as far as players moving forward to see how they react under these circumstances?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody. Each season is its own season, so you have different obstacles and things that come up, whether it's good or it's bad, and how you react to that and how you stay committed to the team process is very important.
Coach, obviously you've had to develop some young players along the way, and you brought in some free agents. I want to ask you about Bobby Okereke, because he was a guy that came in with a reputation as being a true team leader and a guy that smart football player and the kind of guy that you want as part of your program. As you've had a chance to work with him this year, what did you learn about him that you didn't know that has impressed you?
Really everything. When you sign a free agent, they have some experiences at different teams, and you try to make some calls and figure out a little bit about the person. But when they come in, it's a clean slate, and he's done excellent for us. He's one of our team leaders, really for the entire team. He is somebody that's very dependable. He's obviously been out there every play. He's smart. He has good communication skills. He's done really a fabulous job here his first year with us, and he'll be a strong leader for us going forward.
Dexter Lawrence is the lone Pro Bowler from the Giants this year. He just continues to improve, and he kind of fits into that core, right, of guys that, whether it's Andrew Thomas or others, that just exemplify what you want your team to look like, correct?
Yeah, extremely happy that, we signed him in the offseason to a long-term deal. It was for a reason. Obviously, he's one of the best players at his position. He's strong, he's powerful, he's got good length, quickness, athletic. He's a problem in the interior of the defensive line for offensive linemen, and on top of that, he's a very good person, a very good leader, does things right on and off the field, and someone that we're excited to build our program around.
Coach, let's talk about the game against the Eagles. You played them on Christmas Day. You had the ball in your hand with a chance to potentially get the game tied. Can much change, if anything, between the couple of weeks that you last played them?
Schematically, not too much, but every game is different, just like every season is different. So you have to do a good job of getting off to a better start against this team. We haven't done that the last few times we've played them, and that's been a point of emphasis. And that's really comes down to making sure we're prepared as well as we can, and then going out there and executing and doing a good job with the coaching part of it.
When you look at it from another perspective, as you try to attack them and the front that they have and the defense that they have been susceptible to some rushing yards allowed against, and Arizona was able to come back on them. You guys battled back on them as well. Just talk about the challenges that the defense will pose the offense.
Yeah, they have a lot of good players, a lot of high picks, particularly on the defensive line area, and they have some veteran secondary players that know how to play the game well. And this has been a good team for the last few years, and it's no different this year.
How important is it to end this season on a win? Can there be a carryover, kind of like what we saw with the Lions last year going to Green Bay and beating the Packers, and it kind of built some momentum for a following season?
Yeah, I just think every year is so different. So, focus on trying to get this win. It would be great to win our last game at home and, go 3-3 in the division. Those are all short-term goals, obviously, for the rest of the season. And, next season will take care of itself. They're always different. So our focus is on the here and now and trying to do a good job against a team that's in the playoffs, that's, fighting to win the division.
Coach, I know that we appreciate it here, and I'm sure the fans appreciate your honesty each and every week. We want to thank you for taking a couple minutes to join us each and every week in preparation for the upcoming game. I know you didn't get the results that you always wanted, but certainly we know that the effort was there, both on your part, your staff, and all the players, and we appreciate that, and thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Appreciate the time to you guys and to the fans, and we're committed to trying to get this thing built the right way and play a strong game this Sunday.
Thank you to Brian Dable for joining us all season long. Thank you to Tyrod, all the other players that have joined us throughout the year on this Friday edition of the Giants Huddle podcast. And then great job by Lance Meadow previewing the opponent talking to Dave Spadaro and all the great beat reporters he's had on all year long. Don't forget to check out our coverage of the game live on Sunday on WFAN. Pre-game coverage starts at 2:25 with Jonathan Casillas and I. Paul Dottino joins and a bunch of other stuff. 2:25 on WFAN. Come and check it out with kickoff at 4:25. Thanks for joining us on our final Friday edition of the Giants Huddle podcast. Don't worry, Giants Huddle podcast keeps coming all off season long. We'll have player interviews, coach interviews, front office stuff, and a lot of analysts coming your way talking Giants football with you. I'm John Schmelk. Thanks for being with us in the Giants Huddle podcast. Have a great weekend and enjoy the final regular season game for the New York Football Giants in the 2023 season.
You deserve to treat yourself, so turn your tax refund into a U fund and give yourself a Straight Talk Wireless Extended Silver Unlimited plan and get a new Samsung Galaxy A14 on them. You can get a great everyday value on wireless with Straight Talk's unlimited plan starting at $25 a line per month for 4 lines. You'll save so much you'll be enjoying that refund all year long. It's the refund that keeps on refunding. Find Straight Talk at straighttalk.com or at your local Walmart store.
Taxes and fees not included. Offer valid through 4/14/24 while supplies last. Online only. Must purchase a Straight Talk Extended Silver Unlimited plan to qualify. Limit of 5 phones per customer. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Not combinable with auto pay discount.
Road trip reporter Eric Wright here, riding along with the Diaz family in their new Toyota Grand Highlander. So big they barely know I'm here. Back in the roomy third row, the twins battle over a tablet. In front, Mom's trying to play referee. Dad's letting in some air through the available panoramic moonroof. And next to me in the captain's chair, oh, Grandma Mayfield saves the day with butterscotch candies. Classic.
Life's grander in the first ever Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.